Hi, welcome to Cherise Weight Loss Journey. I decided not to make the day a total bust, right? I mean, I was up this morning since 3:30. Well, not since 3:30, but at 3:30. And I took my medication and then I did my lightweight exercises. I did my 30-minute walk. Then I decided, to eat breakfast, cook some chicken so I can eat it later on in the day. And then it looked like it was going to rain. And I was like, oh, yeah, it might rain. It might rain. But that was not no big deal. And I was wondering, I was like, well, I'm wondering if, I could get some like the cards to do the shopping, like the red card or the Uber Eats card, because I'd rather do that than having to do these dashes and because I was disappointed. It really did seem like there's a couple of people out there that are really trying to get something for nothing. And of course, we don't want to think that that's what's going on, but this economy is making people do desperate things and behave desperately. So anyway, I went and had a tortilla and cheese, melted cheese on it, binge. I hadn't had it so long, but I did have quite a bit of it. I did a little sunbathing this afternoon, and then decided to have some nachos, some homemade nachos, and I had quite a bit of nachos. I had 2 servings, right? 2 panfuls. And so I decided, well, I should, at least do something to make this day more progressive. So that's when I decided, well, I have a load of laundry that I can do. And I was thinking if I came today that it might be a little empty, but I haven't come here and found a day when it was empty. Even when it's empty, it's not really empty. That people are sitting out in their cars waiting for their loads to get washed and whatnot. So, yeah, Tide laundromat is on and popping. Okay, so because basically you could get your wash done in like 35 minutes and you're out of here. And that's why I was like, yeah, I can go and get my wash done in 35 minutes. And since I wasn't really doing anything, in the house, I would be able to get at least my clothes washed, because it was hot today, and I was pulling out some shorts And I was like, well, wow, yeah. But I didn't want to go to I didn't want to go to work in shorts. However, coming out here to the laundromat in shorts, because it's about 72 degrees outside right now, makes me feel like, I don't know what I'd be tripping off of. Because, the main thing is just to be comfortable. The main thing is, not to be cold, not to be overheated. And another thing is to try to get over, this illness. I don't know if it's an allergy. I don't know if it's, some type of flu. I really don't know. But I am starting to panic a little bit because I got my electricity bill. Now, I thought this electricity bill would have been a lot lower than the previous bills, but I guess they had a hike in how much the electricity is going to cost us. And so I ended up receiving the highest bill that I've had, not only all year, but all last year also, because my highest bill was $275. This bill ended up being $300 plus. And I was like, what the heck, what is going on here? So, obviously, they've hiked up our, the cost of electricity. Like everything is going up. Everything has gone up and it's still going up. So, oh, I just been watching, videos. I've been trying not to, watch any videos that, stir up my emotions. And I did take it easy today because I'm starting to feel like, well, if I'm going to do this Uber thing, probably, everybody's hustling. Everybody's hustling for the extra money. Men, they're using their girlfriend's cars, they're using their girlfriend's, uh, platform accounts so they could make money, yeah. So, and they wouldn't be doing it if they didn't need the money. And why aren't they doing it in their own name? Because, because there's there's all kinds of barriers. They might have a felony. They might not have the right. They might not have a car. They might not have insurance. And these girls, they let these guys use them as their personal shield. Thinking that, they're not hurting anybody. At least not right now, you know, because he's probably not going to want to pay for, you know, the damages done to her vehicle if he gets into an accident, or, you know, it's causing more maintenance issues with her vehicle. Then there's the taxes that will be due, you know, next year for having earned that money, you know. And believe me, you know, you don't want to be caught, you know. I mean, yeah, you know, if she's already making 40,000, you know, the middle class, they always get taxed the most. So if she's gonna tag on like $20,000 worth of you know, delivery income, she's gonna be in the 60,000s, right? And when you start talking about 60,000, I think you're gonna be in the more of the 20% range of taxes, you know, because that's who America, you know, decides to get their taxes, you know, mostly from. They don't take it from the rich, because the rich say, no, if you tax us, you know, higher, then they feel like they won't be able to, you know, create the jobs or the products, you know. And so that's what they've, you know, convinced, you know, the lawmakers into believing, that, you know, the less taxes that they have, then the more money they have to generate more money, right? And that's probably them who came up with the saying, it takes money to make money, right? But then, you know, they don't think about that when it comes to the poor people, who are their probably main, you know, consumers of their product, is the poor people, which the poor people have to have disposable income in order to make the middle class people's business profitable. And they don't think about things like that when they're desperate. They don't think about it. So, you know, you would think that they would have done a whole restructuring after the pandemic, but they didn't do that. You know, so now they have people operating out of stress and causing, you know, havoc and chaos, you know. And good people, you know, they are having anxiety and mental illness, just because, you know, our so-called financial leaders had defaulted on their money. They don't want to admit that that's the reason what happened, you know, and the world kind of stopped. And, you know, and when America was trying to, you know, cash in on their favors that they had, you know, given to the globe in general, you know, nobody had any money. So it caused the world shutdown. And that's when they wanted to do a reset. But like I said, it caused a lot of people to do, you know, whatever was necessary, whatever they thought was necessary in order to, you know, to keep their head afloat, you know. Some of them, you know, they couldn't take the pressure of even having a family, You know, nobody wants to be around, you know, and watch their children starve, or nobody, you know, will be homeless, you know, with their whole family. I mean, you can't even get aid as a family, as a total family. You know, so um, here we are. I keep being turned down for job after job after job, but you know, every time I start to exert myself, even exercising, even trying to maintain the same exercise routine that I've been doing, you know, I can feel it affects my lungs. And when I can't breathe, you know, I get tired, very tired, and I can't keep up. You know, sometimes I just try to go to the slowest possible pace, and then, you know, just finish out, you know. And it's weird. It's weird, you know, to have a cold in 70 and 80-degree weather. That's weird. But I was telling y'all there was something up with that fog that we had. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people who are in hot climates are suffering colds. How do you get a cold in a hot climate? Okay? So anyway, just out here chilling right now, waiting for the laundry to finish washing, and then I can put it in the wash machine. Like I said, it should take about 25 minutes to wash and 12 minutes to dry. So I got about 5 more minutes. But that will be something that I won't have to do later on, you know. And, you know, I was wide awake, you know, bored to death. And I was like, you know, just go and wash your clothes. They stay open until 10 o'clock. So right now it's 9:20. So yeah, I'll be walking out of there before it closes. um, I've been trying to you know, figure out ways to increase my protein without relying so heavily on the protein shakes. But I have protein powder, so I can start making my own protein shakes and just incorporating, you know, fruits. So if I incorporate fruits and vegetables into my protein shakes, then and nuts, then I can still get my protein and my vitamins. And I have protein shakes. Like I said, I have protein mix shakes. I don't have like the pre-made, I have a couple of the Atkins. I have a few of the Atkins left. I've drank a couple of those. Yeah. So let me go in here and see if I can get my my clothes in the dryer. So I've been watching videos, right? And how, other countries are getting gentrification because of all of the expats moving out of America. And forcing other countries to realize that if they don't inflate their prices, that they will indeed be sold out of their own homestead, their own country, they're off their own land, the same way a lot of other people have had happen to them. So what I had heard was a lot of the expats, are ending up, saying, my goodness, it was one thing to live in a foreign country and to have to put up with inconveniences, but they were able to have a cheaper lifestyle and therefore, had more disposable income to where they could travel more. But now they're starting to say that because, like I said, gentrification is happening, and they're starting to even see that if they go to the local market and these people are not local, they're being charged one price while, the locals have their own separate pricing. On one hand, it seems unfair, but then on the other hand, when you watch exactly what they did, then you come to the conclusion that no, it's not unfair, because we've had it happen here in America when people went starting to work remotely, right? People were starting to work remotely. They were moving out of Washington, D.C., right, where the rents are, $6,000 a month. Their income was appropriate to the cost of living. Then they would go and, go and live in, I don't know, Colorado, where they have a $3,000 a month savings on an apartment, or come to Texas where they might have, a $4,000 a month savings on rent. And even if it's just for 6 months, 4 times 6 is what, 24,000? Right? And so that was like how some people, what they had did was, they would work in one state, and then they'll build their home in a whole nother state. A lot of people built homes here in Texas, and these people, they're never here at home to sleep in their homes because they have a home that they're buying, but they actually work in another state. So that pays them more, right? That was one of the things even my daughter, had recognized. I know I had told her that, people get paid more in California. Well, she had told me that she was aware that people got paid more in California because the cost of living was more. Right? When we hear people on the internet talking about these people must make 6 figures in order to survive. Right? Whereas, like I said, I went and checked out, one apartment, right? And it was a small apartment, and it was, renting for, their smallest apartments were starting at $1,800 here in Texas. So whatever's going on with this influx of people, it is causing everything to go up. And the people that are here, they're suffering because the businesses, they're not going to just give them the appropriate cost of living adjustment. Some of them, they may feel like, well, $1 more is adequate, more than ever, more than ever has, they have done before, but it's not adequate based off of inflation and gentrification that has happened ever since the pandemic. Okay? And that's why I keep saying there should have been a complete, true reset. A true reset. Now, there's certain things that you can't do well, shouldn't do. There's certain things that you shouldn't do, such as, which is what they're doing anyway, which is, land grab people out of their homes, which is what they're doing, forcing them out. My loan hasn't changed, but because my escrow changes, I'm back up to paying close to $800 in escrow a month, right? The taxes, the government services, the interest rate, the insurance. No, yeah, So, and I can only imagine, how much more that would be for people who are buying these homes, starting at, 500,000. So yeah, it's Sticky situation. Situation sticky. Yep. And most people, they're stressing out about it. They are stressing out about it. Where you'll see, people who are working 9 to 5 have other streams of income, such as the social media, marketing, affiliate marketing, also, making, investments in properties and the stock, those people are also barely, they really are, they're barely staying, above water, even though they look like they are doing well. Because a lot of them, they're just, their credit burden. Okay, they are credit burden. A lot of these people, they're using, all kinds of credit, to pay for their businesses, pay for their investments. Pay for their, employees, pay for their equipment. A lot of them, that's how they living. They're living off of credit. The cars, very few people are actually, paying cash. Very few people are actually keeping whatever they buy, until they've paid off the credit for it. They usually are selling it before, before even paying off the credit that they owe on the item. So, and that seems to be, that seems to be the goal. The goal is to buy merchandise, to buy products, to buy homes, to buy businesses, and then to be able to sell these items, at a profit. Off of reputation alone, right? Because they're going around here saying, okay, this business is worth this amount, see my lifestyle, yada yada yada, and there are ways that you can, inflate your profit, your profit margin. And then there are ways to deflate it when it comes to taxes. So yeah, I have to use the restroom. I hate using public restrooms, because now I feel like, most of the restrooms that are open to the public, there's too much of the public using them. for my preference. So we got 20 minutes before this place is supposed to close. Let me go see if my clothes are almost dry. Hold on. Okay, so at least I got out, got my clothes washed. I gotta go to the restroom, so I'm gonna take my clothes to the house. So the topic nowadays is, how do we feel about segregation? Well, it's almost like it's a necessary evil, right? Because when you have certain people who are uncooperative to the point of destruction and disharmony, yeah, there's going to be segregation for sure, right? You can't go around, thinking that you could set people's homes on fire, blow up their businesses, and shoot holes and stuff in their personal property, and scare them, from living their lives. They're going to segregate themselves away from you because you're dangerous. Once you're deemed dangerous, once you are categorized as a terrorist, separation is going to occur, and crossing over boundary lines can be deadly, for sure. Because if you're going to cross over somebody's boundary lines, how can you blame somebody for feeling threatened for their life? Because they're supposed to trust you? And they have been talking about, okay, well, we just need to separate, the wheat from the chaff. We need to separate the wheat from the chaff, right? And the weird part about it is crazy people don't know they're crazy, right? Just like even myself right now, because I don't have a history of being sick, and I haven't been around people who were sick, my knowledge on how to deal with sick people is limited. My knowledge of even identifying my own personal illness is inadequate. And yet, it's like our society doesn't understand these things that, lack of exposure is a different kind of it's a different kind of disability. When you have a whole society out here talking about it's your fault that you're naive. It's your fault that you're not exposed and aware of all of the bad things and the bad people out here in the world. It's your fault, if you get scammed by liars and perpetrators and it's just like, what? Hold on. And I mean, we even have people, will laugh at other people for being naive. And, and the problematic people that take advantage of them. It's like, you guys are so backwards, right? You're supposed to be mad at people who take advantage of our innocent people. But instead, what they tell them, well, consider this as a lesson and not a loss. Right. Come on.
Anybody that actually spends time with their kids